Imagine holding the key to every conversation, every relationship, and every opportunity. Effective communication. Whether you're speaking to a single individual or commanding a room, the power of your words lies not just in what you say, but in how you say it, when you say it, and crucially, how it resonates with your audience. Master this skill and you'll unlock a world where being heard is just the beginning. Think about this. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling misunderstood, or maybe regretting what you said? Maybe it was a disagreement with a loved one that spiraled out of control, or a missed opportunity at work because the message just didn't land. Studies show that over 65% of workplace issues stem from miscommunication, and in our personal lives, the costs can be just as high: strained relationships, frustration, or even loneliness. But here's the good news. It doesn't have to be this way. In this video, we're diving into the art of conscious conversations, a way of talking, listening, and interacting that doesn't just fix the surface-level problems, but builds deeper understanding, stronger connections, and even transforms how you see yourself and others. In a world that's more connected yet more distracted than ever, meaningful communication has become a lost art. Between endless notifications, quick texts, and surface-level chats, we're constantly talking. But are we truly connecting? That's what conscious conversations are all about, bringing intention and awareness into every interaction to create real, lasting impact. So, let's get into it. How to transform the way you talk, listen, and interact, one conscious conversation at a time. At its core, a conscious conversation is an intentional, mindful, and empathetic way of communicating. It's about being fully present in the moment, genuinely connecting with the other person, and fostering an exchange that goes beyond mere words. Unlike the rushed, reactive exchanges we often fall into, where we're more focused on getting our point across or responding quickly, conscious conversations prioritize understanding, empathy, and clarity. Think of it as the difference between having a real dialogue versus two people talking at each other. In reactive or surface-level interactions, we tend to operate on autopilot. We may interrupt, jump to conclusions, or let our emotions dictate our words. Often, these conversations are driven by ego or defensiveness, leading to misunderstandings, hurt feelings, or even conflict. In contrast, a conscious conversation slows things down. It creates space for intentional thought, genuine listening, and authentic self-expression. It's not about winning the conversation or rushing to a solution. It's about building mutual understanding and connection. Imagine a tough conversation with a friend or coworker. A surface-level interaction might look like defensively explaining your side or rushing to offer advice without fully understanding the other person's perspective. In a conscious conversation, you pause, listen actively, and respond thoughtfully, ensuring the exchange feels collaborative and meaningful for both parties. This shift, though subtle, can completely transform how we engage with others and how we feel afterward. To truly engage in conscious conversations, there are three essential building blocks: awareness, active listening, and clear, authentic expression. Let's break these down. 1. Awareness of self and others. Conscious conversations begin with self-awareness, recognizing your own emotions, triggers, and communication patterns. Are you speaking from a place of calm and clarity, or are you reacting impulsively? Are you genuinely curious about the other person's perspective, or are you more concerned about being right? Awareness also extends to understanding the other person's emotional state and body language. Pay attention to subtle cues, their tone of voice, facial expressions, or hesitations. These details provide context for what's really happening beneath the surface. For example, if a coworker seems defensive during a meeting, a reactive response might involve shutting them down or pushing your own point harder. But awareness allows you to pause and ask yourself, why might they be feeling this way? How can I approach this with empathy? This moment of self-reflection can shift the tone of the entire interaction. 2. Active listening. Most people listen to reply, not to understand. Active listening, on the other hand, is a cornerstone of conscious conversations. It requires your full presence, putting away distractions, focusing on the other person's words, and resisting the urge to interrupt or formulate your response while they're still talking. It's about truly hearing what the other person is saying and not saying, and reflecting it back to show you understand. Techniques for active listening include paraphrasing what the other person has said. What I'm hearing is, asking clarifying questions. Can you tell me more about that? And using nonverbal cues like nodding or maintaining eye contact. This not only makes the speaker feel valued and heard, but also ensures you fully grasp their message before responding. For instance, if a friend is venting about a problem, active listening means resisting the urge to jump in with advice or solutions. Instead, you might say, "That sounds really frustrating. How are you feeling about it now?" By holding space for their emotions, you deepen the connection and allow for a more meaningful exchange. 3. Clear and authentic expression. Conscious conversations thrive on clarity and authenticity. This means expressing yourself in a way that is honest, direct, and aligned with your values, while also being mindful of how your words might impact the other person. Avoid vague language, passive-aggressive remarks, or overly harsh criticism. Instead, focus on I statements, communicating your feelings and needs without placing blame. For example, instead of saying, "You never listen to me," you could say, "I feel unheard when I try to share my thoughts, and I'd really appreciate it if we could take turns speaking." This approach reduces defensiveness and opens the door for productive dialogue. Authentic expression also means speaking from the heart, sharing your thoughts, feelings, and intentions in a way that is true to who you are. When combined, these core elements create a powerful framework for conscious conversations. Awareness helps you approach each interaction with intention and empathy. Active listening ensures you understand the other person's perspective. And clear, authentic expression allows you to communicate your own needs and feelings effectively. Together, these tools transform conversations into opportunities for connection, growth, and mutual understanding. Conscious conversations don't just happen by chance. They require practice and intentionality. To build meaningful, transformative dialogue, you need to focus on specific skills that foster understanding and connection. Let's explore 4 key building blocks: mindful listening, empathy and emotional awareness, clarity and expression, and holding space. Mindful listening is the foundation of any conscious conversation. It's the practice of listening to understand, not just to reply. Too often we listen with half our attention, thinking about how we'll respond, mentally forming counter-arguments, or getting distracted by external noise. This type of distracted listening leads to misunderstandings, frustration, and shallow conversations. In mindful listening, however, your full presence is devoted to the other person. A key technique is pausing before you respond. When the other person finishes speaking, take a moment to reflect on what they've said before jumping in. This creates space for thoughtful replies instead of reactive ones. Another technique is reflecting back, repeating or paraphrasing what you've heard to ensure you've understood correctly. For example, you might say, "So what you're saying is you felt overwhelmed during the meeting." This not only helps clarify their message, but also shows you're genuinely paying attention. Finally, avoid interruptions at all costs. Cutting someone off signals that their words aren't as important as yours and breaks the flow of connection. Let's look at an example. Imagine your friend is venting about a tough day at work. Poor listening might involve nodding absent-mindedly while checking your phone or interjecting with comments like, "Yeah, but I think you should have done this instead." Mindful listening, on the other hand, means putting the phone down, maintaining eye contact, and saying something like, "That sounds really stressful. What part of the day was the hardest for you?" This shift, while small, can completely change the dynamic of the conversation, making the other person feel valued and supported. Empathy is the ability to tune into another person's emotional experience, and it's an essential ingredient of conscious conversations. It's not enough to simply hear someone's words. You need to pick up on the emotional undercurrent of what they're saying. What feelings are driving their words? What emotions are they trying to express but struggling to articulate? Recognizing and validating these feelings creates a sense of understanding and connection. For example, if someone says, "I feel like no one respects my opinions at work," the emotional layer beneath those words might be frustration, insecurity, or even sadness. Responding with empathy might sound like, I hear you. It sounds like you're feeling undervalued, and that must be really hard. Simple phrases like, I hear you, that makes sense, or I can imagine how frustrating that must be go a long way in showing that you care about their emotional experience. To develop emotional awareness, pay attention not only to what someone is saying, but also to how they're saying it. Are their words calm or tense? Is their body language open or closed off? This level of attentiveness helps you respond in a way that aligns with their emotional state. For example, if someone's tone is upset, responding with calm reassurance rather than defensiveness can de-escalate tension and foster trust. Conscious conversations rely on clear and authentic expression. When we communicate our thoughts and feelings ambiguously, we leave room for misinterpretation and conflict. This is why it's so important to express yourself in a way that is direct, honest, and free of passive aggressiveness or vague language. One effective tool is using I statements to communicate your perspective without placing blame or triggering defensiveness in others. For instance, instead of saying, "You're always so dismissive of my ideas," which can come across as accusatory, you could say, "I feel frustrated when I share my ideas and don't feel like they're being heard." This small adjustment shifts the focus from blaming the other person to expressing your own feelings and needs in a constructive way. Clear expression also means avoiding assumptions. Don't expect others to read between the lines or guess what you're thinking. If you need something, state it explicitly. For example, instead of saying, "It'd be nice if someone helped me out more around the house," try, "I'd really appreciate it if you could help with the dishes after dinner." This removes ambiguity and ensures your message is understood. The power of clarity is evident in how it prevents misunderstandings. For instance, imagine a coworker misinterprets your feedback as criticism. If you clearly express your intention, "I'm sharing this because I believe it will improve the project, not because I'm questioning your skills," it reframes the conversation and reduces the chances of hurt feelings or conflict. Holding space is the act of creating a safe, non-judgmental environment where someone feels free to express themselves fully. It's about being there for the other person without trying to control, fix, or rush the conversation. Often, when someone shares their thoughts or struggles, our instinct is to jump in with advice or solutions. But holding space requires resisting that urge and instead simply being present. This means listening without judgment, allowing the person to share at their own pace, and validating their feelings without minimizing them. For example, if a friend is upset about a breakup, holding space might involve sitting with them in their pain and saying, "It's okay to feel this way. I'm here for you." Avoiding phrases like, "You'll get over it," or "It's not that bad," helps them feel seen and heard rather than dismissed. Holding space is especially important in difficult conversations or moments of vulnerability. It builds trust because it shows the other person that they can open up to you without fear of judgment or pressure. Over time, this creates deeper emotional intimacy and stronger connections. Conscious conversations are not just theoretical concepts. They're tools you can apply in real-life situations to navigate challenges and strengthen relationships. Whether you're resolving a conflict, giving feedback, or building deeper connections, the principles of mindful listening, empathy, clarity, and holding space can completely transform the outcome of a conversation. Let's explore some common situations and dive into examples of how conscious conversations work in practice. Conflict is inevitable in relationships, but the way we handle it determines whether it becomes a destructive force or an opportunity for growth. In many cases, conflicts escalate because both parties are focused on defending their own perspective rather than understanding the other person's. This is where conscious conversations make a difference. They prioritize mutual understanding over winning the argument. Imagine a scenario where a couple is arguing about how they spend their weekends. One person feels like they're always accommodating their partner's preferences, while the other feels like their suggestions are constantly dismissed. In a reactive conversation, this might look like, Partner A: "You never care about what I want to do. It's always about you." Partner B: "That's not true. You just never say anything until it's too late." This back and forth quickly turns into a blame game, with both people feeling unheard and defensive. Now, let's apply conscious conversation principles. Partner A: I feel frustrated because I feel like my preferences aren't being considered when we plan our weekends. Can we talk about how we can make decisions that feel balanced for both of us? Partner B, I didn't realize you were feeling that way. I want to make sure we're both happy with how we spend our time. Let's figure out a way to check in with each other before we make plans. By using I statements, avoiding blame, and focusing on collaboration, this conversation creates an opportunity to resolve the conflict in a way that strengthens the relationship. Providing feedback, whether in a professional or personal context, can be challenging. It's easy for feedback to come across as criticism, which can make the other person defensive or resistant to change. Conscious conversations ensure that feedback is delivered in a way that is clear, empathetic, and solution-focused. Let's say a manager needs to address a team member who has been missing deadlines. In a reactive approach, the manager might say, "Manager, you've been really unreliable lately. Why can't you meet deadlines like the rest of the team?" This phrasing is vague, critical, and focuses more on the problem than the solution. Now consider a conscious approach. Manager, I've noticed that some deadlines have been missed recently, and I wanted to check in with you. Is there anything that's been making it harder for you to stay on track? Let's work together to figure out how we can address this moving forward. In this version, the manager uses specific observations. I've noticed some deadlines have been missed, expresses curiosity rather than judgment, and invites collaboration to find a solution. This approach not only makes the feedback easier to hear, but also creates a sense of partnership and mutual respect. Building stronger personal connections often requires going beyond surface-level conversations and creating space for vulnerability. Conscious conversations provide the tools to foster intimacy and trust, especially in relationships where communication has become routine or distant. For example, imagine two friends who've grown apart due to busy schedules. One friend feels hurt by the lack of effort but doesn't know how to bring it up without sounding accusatory. A reactive approach might sound like, "Friend A, you never make time for me anymore. I guess our friendship just isn't a priority for you." This statement, though expressing real feelings, is likely to put the other person on the defensive. A conscious conversation, however, might sound like, "Friend A, I've been feeling a little distant lately, and I miss the time we used to spend together. I know life gets busy, but I'd love to find a way to reconnect." This approach focuses on expressing feelings and desires without assigning blame. It also opens the door for a constructive response, such as, "Friend B, I'm so glad you said that. I've been feeling the same way, but wasn't sure how to bring it up. Let's plan something soon." This kind of dialogue strengthens the bond between friends and sets the tone for more intentional communication moving forward. To illustrate the power of conscious conversations, let's look at a detailed role-playing example of a tough conversation, both in its reactive and conscious forms. Scenario: a parent and teenager are arguing about screen time. Reactive approach: Parent, you're always glued to your phone. You never listen when I tell you to put it down. Teenager, it's not that big of a deal. Everyone uses their phone. You're always nagging me. Parent, don't talk back to me. This is exactly why I don't trust you to be responsible. This conversation quickly spirals into conflict, with neither side feeling heard or respected. Conscious conversation approach. Parent, I've noticed that you've been spending a lot of time on your phone lately, and I feel concerned because I want to make sure we're spending quality time together as a family. Can we talk about how we can balance screen time with other activities? Teenager, I get that. I just feel like my phone helps me stay connected with my friends, especially when I'm stressed. Parent, I didn't realize that. Thanks for sharing. I want you to have time with your friends, but I also want to make sure we're connecting as a family. How about we come up with some times where we can all unplug together? By using mindful listening, empathy, and collaborative problem solving, this version of the conversation turns a potential argument into an opportunity for connection and mutual understanding. Whether you're navigating conflict, offering feedback, or nurturing relationships, conscious conversations have the power to transform interactions. They help us move beyond reactive habits and create space for deeper understanding and connection. These strategies don't just improve communication, they strengthen the foundation of our relationships, one mindful conversation at a time. The impact of conscious conversations reaches far beyond individual interactions. By practicing intentional, mindful, and empathetic communication, you don't just improve the way you speak and listen, you transform how you experience life. The benefits extend to personal growth, relationships, and even the broader community, creating ripple effects that lead to stronger connections, greater understanding, and more harmonious environments. Let's take a deeper look at how conscious conversations make a difference on these levels. At a personal level, conscious conversations can be profoundly liberating. When you communicate with intention and clarity, you reduce misunderstandings and avoid the frustration that comes from feeling unheard or misinterpreted. For example, how often do we replay a conversation in our heads, stressing over what we said, or wishing we had expressed ourselves differently? By approaching conversations with awareness, you can minimize these regrets and feel more confident in your ability to articulate your thoughts and emotions effectively. Practicing conscious conversations also enhances your self-expression. You learn to identify your feelings, needs, and boundaries with greater clarity, which makes it easier to communicate them to others. This process fosters self-awareness, understanding not just what you're saying, but why. For example, instead of snapping at a coworker because you're stressed, you might recognize the underlying frustration and say, "I'm feeling overwhelmed by deadlines right now. Can we revisit this later when I'm less rushed?" This shift not only reduces stress, but also allows you to engage in conversations that are more productive and emotionally honest. Moreover, the act of mindful listening, an integral part of conscious conversations, encourages you to slow down and be present. This practice can be deeply grounding, helping you break free from the autopilot mode of daily life. When you're truly present in a conversation, you're not worrying about the past or the future. You're fully engaged in the moment. This presence not only reduces stress, but also brings a sense of fulfillment and connection to your interactions. Relationships thrive on trust, understanding, and meaningful connection, all of which are cultivated through conscious conversations. When you communicate with empathy, listen actively, and express yourself authentically, you create an environment where trust can flourish. People feel safe to open up, knowing that their thoughts and feelings will be respected and valued. One of the most transformative benefits of conscious conversations in relationships is their ability to reduce conflicts. Miscommunication is one of the leading causes of arguments, whether it's between partners, friends, or colleagues. By focusing on clarity and mutual understanding, conscious conversations prevent minor misunderstandings from escalating into major conflicts. For example, instead of assuming someone's intentions during a disagreement, you might say, "I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. Can you explain what you meant by that?" This approach diffuses tension and keeps the conversation collaborative rather than adversarial. Conscious conversations also create deeper emotional connections by encouraging vulnerability and authenticity. When you listen without judgment and express yourself with honesty, you invite others to do the same. Imagine a relationship where both people feel fully seen, heard, and understood, where they can share their fears, dreams, and struggles without fear of criticism or rejection. That level of connection isn't just possible. It's a natural outcome of practicing conscious communication. For example, consider a parent and child who regularly engage in conscious conversations. Instead of dismissing the child's emotions with phrases like, "You're overreacting," the parent might say, "I can see that you're upset. Can you tell me what's going on?" This simple shift creates a foundation of trust and emotional safety, strengthening the bond between them. Over time, these interactions build a relationship where both parties feel valued and connected. The benefits of conscious conversations extend beyond personal and relational dynamics to influence the communities and groups we belong to. Whether it's a workplace, a family, or a social group, conscious communication fosters understanding, cooperation, and harmony. When individuals in a group practice mindful listening and empathetic dialogue, they create a culture of respect and collaboration. In professional settings, for instance, conscious conversations can transform team dynamics. When team members feel heard and valued, they're more likely to contribute ideas, collaborate effectively, and support one another. A manager who practices conscious communication might say, "I'd like to hear everyone's perspective on this project. What challenges are you facing, and how can we address them together?" This approach not only encourages open dialogue, but also demonstrates a commitment to mutual understanding and shared success. Conscious conversations are also invaluable in resolving group conflicts. In situations where tensions run high, such as disagreements over decisions or resource allocation, mindful listening and empathetic communication can de-escalate conflicts and foster compromise. For example, in a neighborhood meeting about a contentious issue like zoning changes, a facilitator might say, "Let's make sure everyone has a chance to share their perspective. We may not all agree, but we can aim to understand each other's concerns." By focusing on understanding rather than winning, the group can work toward solutions that respect diverse viewpoints. Beyond conflict resolution, conscious conversations also build a sense of belonging within communities. When people feel that their voices matter and their contributions are appreciated, they're more likely to engage and invest in the group's well-being. This is particularly important in today's polarized world, where meaningful dialogue is often replaced by divisive rhetoric. Conscious conversations provide a path forward, a way to bridge divides, build empathy, and foster unity. The ripple effects of conscious conversations are undeniable. On a personal level, they reduce stress, enhance self-awareness, and empower you to express yourself more effectively. In relationships, they build trust, reduce conflict, and deepen connections. And in communities, they foster understanding, cooperation, and a sense of belonging. By embracing the principles of mindful listening, empathy, and clarity, you don't just transform the way you communicate, you transform the way you live. The beauty of conscious conversations is that anyone can start practicing them immediately. No special training, tools, or resources are required. It's all about small, intentional shifts in the way you approach communication. While the journey toward mastering conscious conversations takes time and patience, there are simple, actionable steps you can take today to begin transforming your interactions. Here are 3 practical strategies to get you started. Change begins with intention. Make a commitment to have at least one mindful, intentional conversation each day. This could be with your partner, a friend, a colleague, or even a stranger. The key is to approach the interaction with the principles of conscious communication. Be fully present, listen actively, and express yourself authentically. For example, during your next chat with a friend, try setting aside distractions like your phone or TV. Instead of multitasking, focus entirely on the conversation. Pay attention not only to their words, but also to their tone, body language, and emotions. Are they hesitating when they speak? Do they seem excited, worried, or unsure? Acknowledge what you notice and respond with empathy. Even something as simple as, "You seem really excited about this. Tell me more," can open the door to a deeper and more meaningful connection. By making this small, daily commitment, you'll start to notice a shift in the quality of your conversations. You may find that people open up to you more easily, that you're able to navigate disagreements with greater ease, or that your interactions feel more fulfilling and less transactional. Over time, these mindful moments will become second nature, enriching your relationships and communication habits. Active listening is one of the most powerful tools in conscious conversations, but it's also one of the hardest to master. Our minds are so accustomed to wandering, thinking about what we'll say next, replaying past conversations, or jumping ahead to our to-do lists. Practicing active listening is like training a muscle. It requires focus, patience, and consistency. Start small by dedicating just 5 minutes a day to active listening with someone close to you. During this time, your only goal is to truly hear and understand what the other person is saying. Resist the urge to interrupt, offer advice, or relate their experience to your own. Instead, focus on their words, emotions, and intentions. Here's a simple framework to guide you. 1. Paraphrase. After they finish speaking, reflect back what you've heard. For example, It sounds like you're feeling frustrated because of the workload. Is that right? 2. Ask open-ended questions. Encourage them to share more by asking questions like, "Can you tell me more about that?" Or, "How did that make you feel?" 3. Respond. Non-verbally, maintain eye contact, nod, or use facial expressions to show that you're engaged. For example, if your partner comes home and says, "I had such a stressful day at work," resist the temptation to respond with advice like, "You should talk to your boss about setting boundaries." Instead, try saying, "That sounds really tough. What happened today that made it so stressful?" This approach not only validates their feelings, but also gives them space to process and share. With consistent practice, active listening becomes a natural part of your communication style. You'll notice that people feel more comfortable opening up to you, and you'll gain a deeper understanding of their perspectives and emotions. Reflection is a powerful tool for growth, and it's especially effective when it comes to improving your communication skills. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to reflect on one conversation you had. It could be a meaningful exchange with a loved one, a challenging interaction at work, or even a casual chat with a neighbor. Ask yourself the following questions. What went well in this conversation? Did you listen attentively? Did you express yourself clearly? Were you able to connect on a deeper level? What could have been improved? Did you interrupt or dominate the conversation? Did you react defensively or fail to fully understand the other person's perspective? What can you do differently next time? Based on what you learned, identify one small change you can make in your future conversations. For example, let's say you reflect on a conversation with a coworker and realize that you interrupted them mid-sentence to share your own opinion. In hindsight, you recognize that this may have made them feel dismissed or unheard. Moving forward, you could set an intention to pause and let others finish speaking before you respond. By consistently reflecting on your conversations, you'll develop greater self-awareness and insight into your communication patterns. Over time, these reflections will help you identify areas for growth, celebrate your progress, and refine your ability to engage in conscious conversations. These 3 strategies, committing to one mindful conversation a day, practicing active listening for 5 minutes, and reflecting on your conversations, may seem simple, but they are incredibly effective. They encourage you to slow down, pay attention, and approach communication with greater intention and empathy. Over time, these practices will not only transform the way you communicate, but also deepen your relationships, reduce misunderstandings, and foster a sense of connection and fulfillment in your everyday interactions. The key is to start small and stay consistent. Even a single mindful conversation can make a difference, and each day presents new opportunities to practice and grow. So, take the first step today. Set aside distractions, tune into the people around you, and embrace the art of conscious conversations. The results will speak for themselves. Before we wrap up, if you're looking to dive even deeper into improving your communication, I highly recommend checking out Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. It's a fantastic resource for learning how to express yourself clearly and listen with empathy. Remember, conscious conversations are a skill we can all develop. It starts with intention, awareness, and practice. The way we talk, listen, and connect has the power to transform our relationships and even how we experience the world. Let's commit to this journey together and transform the way we interact, one conversation at a time. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your own stories of impactful conversations in the comments below. If this video inspired you, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and tell me your biggest takeaway. Thank you for watching, and here's to building deeper, more meaningful connections.